such a wonderful experience. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Karen Stout for continuing to put the wind underneath my wings. Dr. Monica Pierce Trent, and also Stephanie Marshall, as well as Gabe and Francesca Carpenter and Dr. Joe Hammond. Thank you for continuing to develop my professionalism in this educational world. Appreciate you. And let me also say happy Mother's Day weekend to all the wonderful mothers that's listening today. Appreciate you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Marie, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Vespucio. I am the admissions specialist for Mohawk Valley Community College. So we are a community college located in central New York. We actually have two campuses, one in Rome, one in Utica. Utica is our main campus. And so we support about 5,000 students in total. That includes on-campus, online, credit, non-credit, traditional age adults, everything in between. Right. So we are actually the largest college in between Albany and Syracuse. So if you're familiar with New York, we think that's a cool thing. But our community as a whole, we have so many people from so many different places. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we actually have a refugee center in the city of Utica. So we service people in our community from just all different countries, all different cultures, religions, socioeconomic backgrounds. And that's something for me personally that I've loved about MVCC. I actually had previously worked at a 4-year private institution. So it's been a really great shift coming to the community college. And I love getting to specifically work with our adult learners. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Buffy Howard from Wallace, do you want to go next?
Of course. Good morning. And thank you all for having me here today to represent Wallace Community College and to share some of our outreach strategies. We are a small rural area in southeastern Alabama. We have two campuses, one in Dothan, one in Eufaula, Alabama, and our campuses are about 50 miles apart. Our Dothan campus, which we consider our main campus, is less than 100 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, which gives us pretty good access to Panama City Beach. Our service area spans more than 100 miles. We serve over 4,000 students, and like Marie, in credit, non-credit, workforce development, and adult education classes. In recent years, a lot of the major manufacturing has closed in our area, so that has left a lot of our adults unemployed or underemployed, and our economy left with like farming, agriculture, social services, and a little bit of light manufacturing and things like poultry plants. So I'm happy to have been called to make connections with the adult learners back to higher education. And thank you again for having me here today.
We're delighted to have all three of you here. Wallace Community College in Dothan and Mohawk Valley Community College are the two colleges that are part of our PACE grant. So we're really grateful that they're here sharing their experiences, not only from their own expertise, but also from the work that the college has been doing there. And to have Kenny here from Lorraine, one of our leader colleges of distinction, who is able to share from his perspective as well. So thank you all for being here. As I put in the chat, if you have questions for speakers as we go, please share them in the chat box and we'll try and make some time for those as well as we go through. So my next question is, each of you have somewhat similar roles in that you spend a lot of time out in your community connecting with adult learners and their families and the community. What have you learned is critical to successfully enrolling adult learners in historically underserved communities? So Buffy, I'll go to you next, given that you just ended speaking.
Great, thank you. Some of the things that we found as critical is being willing, well, two things mainly, being willing to spend time helping the adult create the vision for themselves and then providing the support after they've realized what that vision is. Many of them are hesitant because they haven't created a clear goal or a picture of where they want to be. So I often walk them through an activity that I simply call 5 years from now. I used to do this activity with when I worked with teenagers. I called it, then it was simply called 10 years from now or 15 years from now, depending on whether they were 17, 18, or 12 or 13. So now with the adults, I've just adjusted it to 5 years from now. And what we do, we just create pictures. We talk through and ask questions about what would you like your life to be 5 years from now? What are your dream jobs, even down to families, lifestyle, even the cars that they want to drive, just simple, plain conversations. Then we move to what can be done now to increase the chance of those dreams becoming realized. So basically, we help them to clearly define their career goals and their life goals. And a part of that, after we do that, we have to realistically help them to determine how much time they're willing to invest in preparing for that through the education and training process. So we take their goals and consider that time that they're willing to invest. And if it lines up, we move forward. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it conflicts and we have to readjust goals and the vision that they've created. Because sometimes we have to explain that the career aspirations that they have require credentials beyond what we have at the community college level, or either that time would extend beyond the time that they're willing to invest. Sometimes we have to explore with them that they don't have any idea of what they want to do, but they know that they want to do something. So we have to be willing to, and we are willing to offer campus tours and set up times to speak with instructors about what they have to offer. And sometimes it's more than 1 or 2 or even 3 programs. And I know I'm moving kind of fast, but the next thing is sometimes we have to help them to see that it is possible to go through this process, even with your current life responsibilities. That even may take sitting down and identifying supports that they may not have known that they had, which can be through organizations or even just people in their lives who want to see them succeed and are willing to chip in one way or the other. So sometimes it's nothing fancy, but just sitting down and helping them create the picture and to see what needs to be done. And then all of that's done before the onboarding process begins. But once the onboarding process begins, we let them know up front, we are here to support you through this entire process. And we start with the application. Are you going to do it on your own? Do you need our assistance? If you need our assistance, we can start there right here on the spot. We can do that over the phone. We can do it through video chat. We can even text back and forth, whatever's most comfortable for that adult learner in communicating. So it may be today, it may take place over in one session, or it may take place over several days or weeks, back and forth through text or email, whatever it takes. And just letting them know that we're there for putting out fires and helping them to get through roadblocks as they come up, because sometimes they come up. Even with advising or admissions processes and financial aid processes, we help them make those appointments. We offer to go to those appointments with them if they seem hesitant. As we offer as much or as little support as they wish to have. And the last thing is we even help them like through appeals processes. Some of them run into some processes that that others don't because of past history with admissions or academic performance and financial aid and those things. Now, this is truly my last piece, and it's follow-up. Follow-up is absolutely key. And one of the things that I've learned with follow-up is that I've had to start putting follow-up as a calendar item for me. I was relying on to-do list or my memory. That didn't work for me. I quickly learned that calendar items get much more attention from me. So if Sarah tells me on Thursday that I'm gonna work on my FAFSA over the weekend, as soon as our conversation ends, I click and make a calendar appointment to follow up with Sarah on Monday or Tuesday. And that also keeps other things from taking priority over my follow-up because it's already on the calendar.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Buffy. I love the personalization of the process that you've got in place and how it flexes to the students' preferences and needs, at least especially in that moment in time. And how that you start with the goals, not just career goals or academic goals, but goals for their life, goals, you know, even their car, as you mentioned. I think it's wonderful. So Kenneth, do you want to go next?
Sure. Shout out to Buffy. She hit a lot of things on the head. One of the things that we have at Lorain County Community College that we follow is about with our president of our college, Dr. Marsha Ballard. She always speaks about meeting people where they're at. So our outreach team really do that. You know, we're in a small, quaint little county, but it's really kind of large when you start moving around. And our college sits on the border of what I call almost making out of poverty and still being in poverty. So this college almost seemed like it's out of town for a lot of those at-risk communities that surround around us. They don't see themselves here or coming here, but they hear a lot of people who've been here, you know, either around their family, neighbors, or whatever. So our college has a real profound name of knowing that if you come here, you can make it. But for some reason, it's like for the most of the individuals in our county, it seems like one of the best kept secrets to them. So my job is being a Pied Piper, going out and letting people know some things that they don't know, because you only know what you know. And you run around in these circles with people that only know what they know. So I get to go out in our community and tell people what they don't know about this great facility out here, this beacon of hope and light. This power in place has been here since 1963. We are embedded in our community with a lot of our powers in place already. So we get to go out and just meet people where they're at and have these conversations, these curious conversations about what they don't know, what we really do out there. You know, a lot of people look at us and they think, man, I got to go to school for 2 and 3 years. They look at that like being on a highway. And I tell them, no, there's back roads, there's country roads where you can take your time, you know, and enjoy the scenery, like short-term certificates, what I like to call, we call them fast tracks too, but I like to call them certificates of employment. So right then and there, that's what a lot of learners that do. As soon as you mention the word employment, you kind of get their attention. So right then and there, they're already underemployed or not employed at all. And you're mentioning employment and some training that leads to employment that's short and sweet that gets me to that employment. Now I can have a conversation. I can follow up with you. I can help you with the processes, because adult learners have a problem with processes. They're kind of like kids. You can't talk about these processes. You got to have examples to show them, or you got to hold their hands and walk them and be with them and comfort them, because some of these processes are they're just scary to them. You know, the assessments that they have to take, coming back and forth, they're short on time because they got work, they got a lot of stuff juggling, and they don't know how to manage all that and take charge of their life to get somewhere to get them better. So these are the I have real conversations with them. I don't beat around the corner. I don't let them think that this is a easy peasy thing, that is something that's given to you. I let them know that they're definitely going to have help. And when you tell them that they can get help to do this, their eyes open up even more. And I let them know about the wraparound services that we have, not only on campus, but out in the community as well. So you don't have to run to the campus to get help. We have some partners out in the community that can help you as well. There's a lot of barriers with adults, and you got to service their barriers in order to get them to understand and see the opportunities that exist on the other side. So this is what we do. And I got a small team I'm dealing with. I got 2 other associates that I work with. Shout out to Lizette Torres and Kenny Morano. We all have people, you know, these soft skills, these people skills, where we can have great conversations with people and help them through their stresses of their day-to-day, and get them to see the opportunities that exist with not only training that leads to employment, but just leads to a better life in general. So
Wonderful, thank you. One of the things we always talk about when we talk about processes at colleges is it might seem clear and simple to us as people who use those processes on a daily basis, but if you just think back to the last time you called, your internet provider or your mobile cell provider to kind of change something, the processes on their side are quite clear, but they can be incredibly frustrating for the user, sometimes designed intentionally that way in some industries, but it really examining those processes from the user perspective, from the student perspective is important.
It's critical. Yes.
Yeah. So Marie, do you want to go next?
I'm happy to. So Kenny and Buffy touched on some really, really great strategies. I think being personal, I think we all agree, is a huge part of connecting and enrolling our students. But before we even get to enrolling, something that I know my team here at MVCC has talked a lot about is how do we make it known to the population we're trying to reach that we're even an option for them? Because I mean, we all know as adults, right, that we have 18 other factors in life. We're not just thinking about school, just like we're not only thinking about work or families or multiple jobs or kids or sick parents or, all of the other things in life going on. And that's really only just looking at ourselves. That's not even looking at the grander scale, right, of what's going on in life. So how can we meet our students where we're at, like literally and physically, so that they can even have this first notion that this is a possibility for them? So Julia had mentioned that MVCC, we are so thankful because we were able to participate with that PACE grant. And to make a long story short, because of our grant, we were able to bring on education outreach counselors. So those counselors are actually able to go out and physically be in the community. So I am one person and I only work on the credit side of things at our college pretty much. I can't be everywhere. So Naomi and Andrea, our counselors, went out and they were, hitting the ground running. They were physically at community events, movie nights, the library, that refugee center I told you guys about, at churches, actually doing home visits after you start that initial conversation. And I think that having that personal approach and making it a little bit less intimidating because you're coming to their space, right? You physically are meeting them where they're at. And that was, I think, a key to just starting the conversation. But from there, also meeting those adults where they're at in terms of needs. Because we talked about all those different factors, that means that they all have different needs too. Those barriers are not the same for every single person. So getting to know them, getting to get to know, okay, what do you need? How can I help? What do you want to do? Right? You said you have that 5-year plan, Buffy. It's a less formal version of that, I would say, because it's getting to know our students. And from there, okay, what happens when then they do need to apply? Our outreach counselors, they can help them navigate some of that, but eventually they have to connect with others. And I think in terms of the actual enrollment process, I would call that one of our key points is distinguishing connecting versus handing off. There's a big difference there. So even though we all think, oh, adults, well, they know how to talk to people. So, Kenny, you have to talk to Buffy so that you can apply. I'll talk to you later. We don't want that. I don't want that. So I know other people don't want that. It's part of that building the relationship. So connecting and saying, hey, Buffy, can I bring Kenny to come talk with you? I'd really like to get this admissions process started, right? That's what our outreach counselors do with myself for credit programs, but also with our community and corporate education department for that non-credit side. So depending on what our students' goals and needs are and where they're at and what they're looking for, they will bring them and connect them with us instead of handing off. So it's really that building a community, building a support system. But I think having that two-part approach is part of, the two key points for enrolling our adults.
Thank you. That's awesome, Marie. One of the things that it sounds like you and both Kenny and Buffy are all implementing in this approach is something that ATD wrote in our strategic plan, which is we need to move from just having open doors to really ushering in people from our community who could benefit from what we have to offer. So it sounds like you're really putting that into practice.
Yeah, we need to change the traditional setting that we have for our traditional students and have a more adult learner setting for our adult learners. There's two different, a traditional student is different than an adult learner, even though a traditional student may be an adult learner. But when you trying to jiggle and manage time, and that stuff doesn't stop, you really got to cater to these adults to really get them to bite down on these opportunities that exist.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, an open door is only good if someone knows it's open and feels it's safe to walk through. Right. So open doors are great. But yeah.
And one thing I want to add, you got to have programming for these adults, right? A lot of these programs that we have, these 2 and 3, 4-year degrees, a lot of people, these adults not trying to go to school for that long period of time. They don't see themselves managing that. They're trying to get to work or make more money. So I want to give a shout out to our business solution growth services division that we have. We have a unique set of individual advisors and associates that foster relationships in our community with employers. They go to these employers are dying to get people to work for them. So we finding out what these employers need, develop the programming for them. And now these employers are coming straight to the college and snatching our students out because we got these short-term and fast-track certificates, like I call them certificates of employment, is getting people to the job market a lot quicker. So that is something that's catering to adults now. And it seems to be working. It's a better conversation than trying to get them to do a 4-year degree right off the rip. It's really daunting. So you got to slow that process down for them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So you all spend a lot of time in the community. And you have some really strong and interesting partnerships with some community-based organizations, which are key to your efforts. So can each of you share a few examples of either the most important or some unique partnerships that help you connect with underserved adults? And I'm going to pass to Buffy first.
I'll be glad to talk about our partnerships. First of all, I appreciate all of our partnerships. We're just very lucky to have some great ones. But I have to admit that there are a couple that are extra, just have that extra specialness to them. I'll start with the one I think is the most unique right now that I've heard from a lot of people. Oh, really? Is that what you do? It's with one of the district courts in one of the counties that we serve. That judge seems to have a heart to want people to get past whatever current situation they're in. So we attend that district court once a month, and before court begins each month, he'll ask the courtroom of people waiting for their cases to be heard or to appear, who's interested in finding a job or who's interested in having a career. He'll then explain that there's someone here from Wallace Community College and they have some good things to offer. And I want you to take a few minutes to hear what they have to say. Then he'll give us a chance to share our programs and services. After we do our little spiel, we tell them where we'll be in the courthouse and we leave the courtroom. And usually we'll be in the room right behind or right across the hallway from the courtroom. And then those that are interested will come in and they'll start conversations. We'll start conversations with them about what they want to do and help them get started with whatever it is. Some of them want to enroll in adult ed because they know that they need the high school diploma or GED. And some of them want to go into 4 credit programs. So that's the district court. And I say that one's the most unique. One of the most rewarding for me is the relationship we have with Dothan Housing Authority. They have what they call a BOSS program. That's BOSS, and it's building opportunities for self-sufficiency. They've allowed us to be a part of that program as an option for the residents who have education or career training goals. as a part of their self-sufficiency plans. So on days when they're meeting, they allow us to come in and set up and be ready to assist anyone as either they start their self-sufficiency plan. Some of them are revising their plans, and some of them are just going over what their goals are. The Housing Authority also gives us an open invitation to all of their activities for their residents, whether it is at the Housing Authority or activities that they're having for residents in each of their communities. And the last one is with our own adult education department right here at Wallace. We visit the classrooms, on-site and off-site classrooms throughout the year, and we'll make presentations. We'll talk about life and goals, what brought them to the program, where they want to go from here. So we kind of build a relationship with those adult education students before they actually get their credential. We've started now taking them on campus tours so that they can actually see the options that they have once they have completed their high school credential. And we end that with, we also attend their graduation practice so that they can go ahead and do whatever they need to do after practice. And then we show up at the adult ed graduation if anybody wants to make appointments, or if any of their family members, some of the family members show interest, after the graduation ceremony. So those are three, I would say, partnerships that I appreciate.
Thank you. Everyone in the chat is saying the courtroom idea is amazing. And I know anytime I mention it to people, they want to know more about it. So Kenny, do you want to go next?
Sure. Similar with Buffy, we also have Kenny Morano, our another associate that I work with, deals with our courts too. We have a judge that contacts Kenny, and we do college tours for these. They're juvenile courts. So we bring them on. They've never been on college campus before. So when you bring them to our college campus, which is a phenomenal campus, their eyes just get big. All of a sudden they want to see themselves there. You can see the drive and hope gets back into them. So we like to inspire people and get them to dream and start dreaming big again. So kudos to that. We having that Kenny do that great work. One of the exciting works that we do to really kick our outreach off is working with our own Aspire program we have. Shout out to Mary Murphy, who's director of our Aspire program, helping people get their GEDs. I found out that there's a big number here in our county with 25,000 individuals that don't have their GEDs. I'll say, wow, let's start there. So in working with those adults, those individuals, and helping to get their GEDs has been inspiring, to watch them, fight to get that. Some of them take 2 or 3 years, but they'll get it. And then we're offering them a scholarship, and we're telling them all that work you just put in, don't let it, go in vain. Let's get a credential. Let's get a short-term certificate. So we'll get them enrolled in college and get them a short-term certificate and watch them get that certificate and go across that stage and watch their lives change. So that is, we actually moved the needle up 11% for our Black and Brown Latino males in that Aspire program. So shout out to our 3 little adult outreach associates for moving that needle. It continues to move our work. We also have in the hood, we have a unique partnership with El Centro and also the National Urban League. We have our GED classes being taught out of those. We meet people and foster relationship there. We utilize their facilities to help people have Wi-Fi connections, help with any kind of other barriers that they're going through, as far as food securities and security, because a lot of the barriers that these individuals run into, some of them you got to deal with before they actually even enroll in school, right? You got to help them with some daycare. You got to help them with some food. You got to help them with a car problem. You got to help the stress with them first before you can help them see some opportunities, right? So we, like Buffy said, it's a constant checking back on people. And yes, I do utilize my Outlook calendar to remind me that I need to call so-and-so and call so-and-so. And this outreach job is a 24/7 job. That's something that nobody tells you. But the work that you get from helping people is priceless, right? It's priceless. So those unique partnerships we have with El Centro and the National Urban Loop is incredible because now we bringing employers in and they host job interviews. They host hiring on the spot right at these facilities, and they come up with creative ideas because these people can't get to their jobs. They pick people up there and then bring them to work, take a little fee out of their check for that service. But now we got people getting hired at these facilities and being picked up and dropped back off, back and forth. So it's a win-win. So we are definitely embedded in our community, trying to do wonderful things, thinking outside the box, with just trying to get people connected and get their lives better. So thank you.
That's awesome. I saw a lot of interest in the Aspire program in particular that you mentioned, but that's a lot of really good examples, and that you also have a court connection focused on the youth. That's really great. So Marie.
All right, so we have a few programs I'll touch on. The first one is actually a program that our college runs. It's College Community Connection. So we call it C3. It's available for all of our students, but in talking about all of these barriers, I'm on the same page with you, right, Kenny? So trying to eliminate their stress before getting into the classroom that is half the battle, right? Making it, again, attainable. So C3, it's a food pantry, it's a resource for helping you find childcare, it's a resource for transportation, it's, you know, in terms of like getting you someplace, but also, okay, your car broke down and A, can't make it to campus, and B, can't make it home or take care of your kids or get where you need to be. Okay, great. Maybe there's funding to help, you know, to cover those car parts, right? Like things like that. Any kind of, you know, housing insecurities, you name it. C3 is, I mean, just an incredible resource for our students. And I will shout it to anybody who comes in my door that they need to take advantage of that. So that is the first program that is just incredibly helpful, right? And connects the college with our community, not just one organization, but many. So I love that, first and foremost. Another community partnership that we have that I think is pretty unique for us, and I'll say it again, is our connection with our refugee population. So it's actually called The Center. And so I have a few colleagues there. One who I work with really regularly, Liz, who's just a fantastic advocate for all of these people coming from different places under different circumstances, because that specific population has, you know, all of these other barriers we've talked about, the housing, the jobs, things like that. But a lot of my students also can't obtain their original like transcripts or documents that they would need to traditionally get into college. Or if they have them, they're not translated. So, you know, you're limited, right? So partnering with the center has been really, really great in the sense of, again, connecting with people, because I think we all could use an advocate at some point in our lives, right? But also they've brought us in for community education sessions is what they call them. And so I've gone myself, but I know Naomi, one of our outreach counselors, she's come with me, or financial aid from our college has come with us, because financial aid is a whole different ballgame for them, right? It's not just a simple, oh, fill out your FAFSA and your New York State aid and you'll be good to go, because everyone has a different status, which I think under your traditional circumstances, our financial aid offices aren't always as well versed in, we'll say, right? So the fact that we do have financial aid representatives available that have done the research and want to make aid available to students, and to have the center saying, let me bring these people in because you've gotten here, and how do you move forward? We don't all have thousands laying around to afford college. Or I think I saw someone just say, to afford translations of those transcripts. Every little thing adds up. So having those resources, those, potential funds available through the center, and then to partner together to bring us in to meet these students where they're at, right, is huge. But they'll also come and schedule appointments on our campuses with all different offices to come to testing, to come sit down and fill out an application with me, to come visit for, some of our fast track programs for our short-term credentials, or maybe connecting them there because they don't have any transcripts, but have 6 different degrees. And, I had one student, DeGaulle, that was him. He had 6 different degrees, could speak 7 languages, but didn't physically have anything that could be translated here. So he's taking some shorter credentials that don't require some of that paperwork and can be funded, and we have grants for in order to reach his goals. He wants to be a medical translator, actually, because his background, he was a doctor. So it's things like that. That partnership with the center, I think, is huge, and it's continuing to evolve and build more pathways. Because circling back to that idea of, having a clear breakdown of steps, I think is so important. It's so easy to say, well, you have this option, or this option, but you can get there 8 different ways. And those 8 different ways are great. But I don't know about you guys, sometimes it's so helpful for me to see that in front of me, like a choose your own adventure book. If I go A, it's going to take me here. And if I go B, it's going to take me over here. Right. So that's been huge. And then honestly, I'll also touch a little bit on some of our kind of in progress partnerships, because especially for our adult learners, jobs are a huge part of it. Having a job, getting a job, continuing to be able to progress in that field, right? So we've actually been working on partnerships with one of the healthcare systems locally, MVHS, it's Mohawk Valley Health Systems. And we've been working with them on both shorter micro credentials that can be implemented as part of new hire trainings, because so many of these underserved populations don't always feel that they have the credentials for a job, right? So if we're coming in at an entry-level position, feeling stagnant there that's not ideal, right? So if we can enter into the conversation and say, okay, great, we're at their job fairs, right? So that when people come in and they want to start as a food service worker because they don't know where else to start and they don't have a college education or anything like that. So let's just start here, it's entry level. We're there to then say, okay, great. Did you know you can take a couple classes with us? It'll be part of your training and your tuition would be covered through your job, through your employer. It would let you move up internally and it would give you something to walk away with that now you have a credential and a job. It's a bonus, right? Which of course then in turn helps the community with hiring and with retention. So it's this nice little circle, I think, where it helps everyone involved. But filling that need for those students, that's the biggest thing, is how can we fill the needs that they have? So working on future partnerships so that it's not just education, it's employment too.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you. I love the work you do with the refugee population in your area. It's really detailed and thoughtful. So thank you. So I'm going to do a quick time check. We have 12 minutes left and I have a couple of questions. So note to my speakers, if you can keep it somewhat brief on these next 2, so that I think they're getting to a couple of the questions in the chat anyway. But if you can just make sure to keep an eye on the time so that we don't keep people too long. If there are any questions we don't get to, I'm happy to connect people behind the scenes after the event to learn more. So the next question is, in your specific role in your outreach work with adult learners, what are the biggest challenges that you face? And Kenny, I see you're unmuted, so I'm going to ask you to go first.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm trying to find my power cord because I'm about to run out of power. I can't find it.
Okay,
Anyway.
Kenny, I'm gonna pass to Buffy first and
Thanks.
And I'll be very brief. Marie, it's awesome what y'all are doing with the refugee center. And I mean, it's just amazing. It's mind blowing. But quickly, biggest challenges: wanting to be everywhere, but needing to be stationary sometimes because of follow-up, which follow-up is the second, it kind of leads to that. So wanting to be everywhere, but needing to be stationary sometimes. Having to turn people down is no fun. Having to miss events is no fun, but follow-up is as key to the success of outreach as is showing up.
Right, Marie.
Absolutely. I think for us currently, for myself in my position, but also for my adult learners that I work with, is typically the format of a program. We have a lot of traditional programs, right? The traditional semester where if you're taking a full-time load, 4 or 5 classes within, X amount of time. And it's full-time. That is a full-time job, right? So having programs that are designed for working adults or working individuals. We actually have one, it's called an evening degree program, and you're only taking 1 or 2 classes at a time for like 6 to 8 weeks, and then taking another 1 or 2. So your classes are staggered. It's still for a full semester. So for an associate's, you're still done in 2 years, the same way a traditional path would be, but it's formatted so that it's customized a little bit more. It's more conducive for a working individual's lifestyle. So that's been an obstacle, is getting more of that, because we have programs in business, but my students have needs in like healthcare or things like that aren't currently available. So I think for the students, it's an obstacle. For us advocating for them, it's been an obstacle a little bit right now, challenge.
Great, thank
What was the
you.
question again?
Don't worry, Kenny, my office light has been turning off during this as well, so tech issues. So the question is, what are the biggest challenges in your outreach work specifically?
Oh, challenges, biggest challenges. Wow, everything's a challenge, right? I don't look at it as biggest challenge. Just trying to convey the opportunities, right? Trying to get people to take the time and then do assessment of themselves, right? Because a lot of individuals never assess themselves and see what their weak and strong points are, right? And see what their interests are. And then take a time to come out to one of the information sessions that we hold throughout our community about these unique training opportunities that's leading directly to employers is looking to hire them. That's a challenge with adults, trying to get them to take the time out of their day, whatever they're doing, to better the rest of their lives. So we think outside the box. We're trying to come up with unique opportunities to engage our community, to do just that, to get them to see that there's opportunities everywhere in our county, and it might take a little bit of training just to get you to that opportunity. So we embed ourselves, like I said, I wanted to add on to the partnerships. I don't want to leave out our faith-based partnerships with our pastors in our county. We hold prayer breakfasts at our college, because our county needs prayer and our community needs prayer. And then we also want to make sure our pastors get that information out too, because when most adults get into trouble, they're usually running into their churches. So we want to empower our pastors to make sure that they know, hey, send them our way. We can help them. So also, Ohio means jobs. Trying to tell an adult that death is one of their biggest bags that they're leaving on the table of their life. If you are underemployed or not employed at all, and you're an adult and you haven't been out to your Ohio Means job, they go through their 3-hour orientation and listen to all the wonderful things they got, especially if you are short on money and don't know how to pay for your college. That is where the bag is at for an adult learner, especially if you already had some college and you ran out of your Pell money. They can help you finish getting your degree. They don't know that. So trying to communicate all these opportunities is always a challenge. There's only 3 of us on our outreach team. We can't be everywhere. And that seems to be the challenge, trying to decide where we're going to be at, what's the, best place of attack to where we can actually, get the better opportunity for people to see us. That is a challenge. Every week we have weekly outreach meetings trying to address just that.
Awesome. That's actually a really good segue into my final question. And I know we only have 5 or 6 minutes left. So I'm going to ask if you can give me, if other colleges wanted to create similar roles, so specifically focused on outreach, for adult learners in their communities. What advice would you give them as they start out? And I'm going to ask if you have one piece of advice that you would give them for this role. And I'm going to start with you, Kenny, so we can go first with you.
I'm sorry. You said one piece of advice to do outreach role?
Yes. So not all colleges have adult learner focused outreach roles.
Right,
So
right.
if they wanted to do that, what would your
Right.
advice be?
So you know what outreach really is? It's about sharing your experiences. So I'm an adult learner myself. I'm still trying to get my BA. So all the experiences I had with the enrollment process, all the processes that I went through in my life, the assessment processes I went through at Hard Means Jobs, has a lot of information that I have to give. My shared experiences can be shared with others. My frustrations and aggravations that I went through and how I combated them, I can go out in my community with people with similar minds and similar frustrations and tell them what are the best practices that I utilize to better myself, right? So find somebody that has a lot of those shared experiences and willing to share those experiences.
Thank you. And I said, by the way, just for everyone attending, I said we have 5 minutes left for my questions. We then have 5 minutes for yours. I'm trying to keep at least 5 minutes for you. So that is why I said that. Marie, do you want to go next?
So my best advice is do not assume you know what they need. And my colleagues, I'm sure, get sick of hearing me say it, but it is one of my favorite things that we did with the PACE grant. It was that there's a group of us that have worked together on adult outreach, but specifically for this grant, that came up with a list of assumptions of what we thought that adult learners needed. And specifically for us, we've been doing work with adult learners of color specifically. And then we were able to work with a company locally, the Page Group, and they went out and, asked different groups from the community, basically, hey, tell me what you need kind of a deal. All of the assumptions made were incorrect. So my biggest advice, do not assume you know everything, and don't be afraid to ask what it is they need, because it's different for everybody.
Absolutely. And Mohawk Valley was not the only PACE college that had that experience where they had assumptions, went into the community and asked those questions and found something different.
I just want everyone all the time to acknowledge it and act on that, because that was the key to be able to move forward. If you don't know what they need, how do you help? So
absolutely. Thank you. Buffy?
I had three things in mind, but I'll share that my biggest piece of advice is to stay encouraged. Stay encouraged. Not all events are going to yield prospective adult learners. Some just won't be well attended, but these can turn into some of the best networking opportunities you've ever seen, because nobody has anything else to do. So I was thinking when I first got back to Wallace almost 2 years ago now, so this will put this about 1.5 years ago, we were at a resource fair, hardly anyone was there. 3 of the most lasting and beneficial partnerships developed from that day of none of us having anything to do. We didn't pack up to leave. We just started visiting each other's table. One of them is the Area Agency on Aging that provides resources for caregivers. We're a resource for caregivers. One of them is with Trio. It was a Trio Educational Opportunity Center. She was new to the job, just like me. She's trying to connect people to higher education. So am I. And then the other was with a trafficking, a nonprofit that serves survivors of human trafficking. And so we just try to keep that in mind. Stay encouraged. And I try to always remember, and I know you all have heard this, the starfish story. Each person that we help matters. It matters beyond measure, whether we help 1 or 50. So stay encouraged.
So Buffy gave away one of our best kept secrets, networking. So, seriously, in order to do outreach, you got to know everybody's business.
Yeah.
And networking is gonna empower you like you wouldn't believe. You got to learn your job through other people's works, what they're doing. You got to get in the community and learn the community, assess your community, like before you can even get in front of somebody. Because like I said, there's barriers you got to help knock down before you can help some of these people see some of these opportunities. So thanks, Buffy, for that. Yeah, networking is powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the way you all do it, you all learn from their perspective what your partner's goals are, what they want, and then you connect your work to theirs, as Buffy
Yes.
just did a wonderful example of that. And it's exactly how you need to do real partnerships work. That's the training you get when you do any kind of systems thinking or partnerships training.
Yes.
So thank you all. We've got a few questions that have come through. I'm trying to keep an eye out on them. So there is one that I think it was for you, Buffy, earlier. When you follow up with students, do you have a limit? And you two, Kenny and Maria, can reply as well. When you follow up with students, do you have a limit of times to follow up after receiving no response?
We don't have an official limit, but you can feel when they checked out. And it's a fine line between follow-up and stalking per se, but I wouldn't call it that. But yeah, you can just feel when they've checked out of the process or they're not ready yet. So what we do at that time, we keep their contact information and we invite them to other events that we may be having, because it may have turned out that something happened and they weren't able to actually start the process at that time. So we don't forget about them. We keep them in the list rotation for text messages and emails about upcoming events, or hopefully they'll see us again on social media. This past Saturday, we had a Sparks Campus Opportunity Day right here on our smaller campus. And someone that I had met, a former student about a year ago at a Wallace on Wheels event in front of the Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah, the Piggly Wiggly grocery store. It's I don't know. I don't think it's national. I think it's a little country store.
Yeah,
So,
I lived next door to one. I remember.
Yeah. So she came, she saw the Sparks Campus. That's what we call our Eufaula campus Opportunity Day on Facebook. And she said, I was wanting to get back to you, Miss Buffy, because I kept saying, I need to see Miss Buffy. I need to see Miss Buffy. I'm ready to get started. And so she saw Sparks Campus Opportunity Day and came, but our initial contact was a year ago. So, you know, you kind of feel when the fire is out and you just leave them be.
They'll let you know. You know, you'll
Yeah.
follow up and then they'll let you know. But the funny thing is you'll see them again. So if they're trying to run from you, they always run into you, not away from you. So that's how it
That's
works.
right, Kenny. That's right.
Awesome. So we have a couple of minutes left. There's one question here. Do you invite the community partnerships or business organizations to campus to hear about the college resources to take back to their clients?
So that's why we have our prayer breakfasts. I've seen somebody ask a comment in there, hey, that's pushing a fine line between something and something other. Well, listen, we invite them to share the information of everything that's going on campus. And then we might throw a couple of prayers in there because it is a prayer breakfast, you know. There's nothing wrong with, you know, prayer doesn't hurt anybody. But that's what we engage our community then with a prayer breakfast. We use prayer breakfasts, information sessions on new programs that come up. We get invited, you know, a lot of the stuff we try to go out into the community to do. And we're at our partnerships at the Urban League, at the El Centros. Actually, we have one of our outreach associates embedded at El Centro now, and we're working on trying to get me at the Urban League. You know, we're trying to move our offices inside some of our partners and stuff to spread and engage that at-risk population even more so because they have, we have transportation problems here in our county. So we want to make sure that we're inside and embedded with those individuals. And we invite everybody to these information sessions we have, especially at our prayer breakfasts.
I'll actually tell you just briefly, we do more of going out versus having communities based organizations come in. We always, everyone is open, welcome, invited. But oftentimes it seems meeting them where they're at, meeting others where they're at, for us seems to be the way things tend to work out. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mixes are great, but some organizations just don't have the capacity to do that. So we're at time. So I want to say thank you all so much. Marie, Kenny, Buffy, this has been wonderful. Did I not tell you at the beginning that this was going to be a really interesting session? We had over 200 people stay here for the whole time. So I think I wasn't wrong there. I put my email in chat, and you can also reach out on ATD's website if you have further questions, and I'll be happy to make connections for you if when the speakers have time. But thank you all for attending. Thank you to our speakers again. Thank you to the tech support who have been here and doing a wonderful job. We really appreciate you. And I hope to see you in a couple of other sessions later today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Happy
Y'all have a
Mother's Day.
great one.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you so much.